Aren't jigsaw puzzles great? They require the ability to put together interlocking pieces that build on each other and when finished, reveal a picture that tells a story. Hi, I'm Betty Hollister, Public Information Manager with the Regional Flood Control District, and welcome to another edition of the Flood Channel. Just as we're putting together this puzzle here at Lincoln Elementary School, we're going to put together the pieces that make up the district. First, we'll visit with Clark County Commissioner Bruce Woodbury about how the district came into existence. Then we'll talk to you, the residents of the valley, about some former flooding hotspots and how those areas are better protected. From there, we'll show you a few projects that have made a big difference when it rains. After that, we'll look at our ongoing efforts to educate you and your families about flood safety. Finally, we'll see what the future holds for the district. All that, our Flood 101 and Pollution Solution segments coming up on this edition of the Flood Channel. Every puzzle has a starting point. So as we begin solving the district's picture, let's place our first piece of the puzzle with Clark County Commissioner Bruce Woodbury, who was instrumental in the formation and development of the Flood Control District.
Well, before the creation of the Flood Control District, the county and each of the cities had to do their own planning and zoning and what little bit of flood control work they were able to do. And there was no coordinated effort. And of course, heavy rains and flash floods have nothing to do with geographic or governmental boundaries. And so it was apparent to a lot of us that whatever we did, we had to do it on a regional approach. Now we have an agency that can make recommendations to each of the entities, and there's a coordination through technical advisory committees as well as citizen advisory committees, and we allocate money based on priorities for the whole region, not just one city or one county, and it's worked so much better, and I think the public would have been justified in kicking us all out of office if we hadn't adopted that type of approach. Well, a lot of people moved to southern Nevada, and the last thing that is on their mind is the possibility of flooding, because it's a desert and it's such a dry climate and we get very little rain compared to most areas. Mother Nature has dictated that we're going to have flooding, and we have to funnel that flooding into safe channels, and we have to have detention basins to hold back the water so that the channels can handle the water. And it's only a matter of time before any new resident will see what we're talking about. When I became a county commissioner in 1981, big areas of my district were hit with massive flooding just a few months after I became a commissioner. And there really wasn't any significant money at all to do flood control in those days. The community just kept getting hit year after year. We went to the 1983 legislature and asked them to consider creating a flood control district and helping us find a way to get funding, and we didn't get very far. And then in 1984, we got hit again with terrible flooding in Moapa Valley and the Las Vegas Valley and really many parts of Clark County. So again, we made an approach to the legislature, this time in 1985, and this time we were successful. And together, along with a number of citizens, we went to the public. We made hundreds of speeches, and we raised money and did a media campaign, and we got an overwhelming vote in favor from the public of the funding source. Well, every legislative session, it seems to be that there are some legislators who look at the possibility of diverting some of the funding that has been approved by the voters of Clark County for flood control and maybe putting it towards other needs. And my only thing I can say is that what we said every session is that this is a critically important program. And the people of this community have spoken, and they said they wanted this funding to be for flood control and flood control only. And we, with all the growth we've had and the development, we have a number of projects that still have to be built, and it's going to take many, many more years to get this community properly protected. We would just say to the legislature that we are grateful for your efforts in years past in creating the district and helping us have a means of funding, and we just ask that we can be able to continue to do what the public has mandated that we do.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodbury, for not only being the start of our puzzle, but for having the vision and determination to know how vital it was to protect the lives and property of our residents and visitors from the impacts of flooding. We'll be back with more on the Flood Channel after this.
Tim Szymanski here with Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, and I'm asking you to talk to your children about the dangers of flash floods. Water in our flood channels can rise several feet in just minutes. The force of just a few inches of that water could easily knock a child over, putting them at risk for drowning. Every year during flood season, our rescue crews are called out to save kids from flood water. This year, help us keep your children safe. Teach them that playing in rain is a dangerous game and that flash floods can be deadly.
This message brought to you by the Regional Flood Control District, FEMA, Project Impact, and the City of Las Vegas.
I'm Clark County Commissioner Bruce Woodbury, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
Besides flood safety, what other benefits do we get from the Regional Flood Control District?
Not only the benefit of less flooding, but for every dollar the district spends building flood control improvements, the community gets back $2 in benefits, like reductions in flood insurance premiums and property value enhancements. But the most important benefit of all, saved lives. Welcome back to the Flood Channel. Over the years, you have probably heard, read, or even witnessed some of the devastation caused by severe storms in our area. People stranded on top of cars, streets becoming raging rivers, and emergency workers pulling people to safety. They're all part of Southern Nevada's history. So what is the district doing to lessen flooding? We sent Eric to find out.
Well, here I am at one of the benefits to taxpayers and a solution that the district has put in place at the Desert Breeze Multi-Use Facility here at Durango and Spring Mountain Road. This beautiful athletic field that these families are enjoying behind me also acts as a detention basin, helping to deter potentially dangerous floodwaters should a severe storm hit the valley that could cause damage to homes and businesses around here. So this made me wonder, how many of these folks out here realize that this facility could potentially save their homes and families when the next severe storm hits the valley? Let's talk to a few of them and find out.
We've seen actually a lot of floods. We've lived here, our family's lived here since '57. We've seen floods happen all over the valley, and with funding the way it is and how little funding that we get for parks, it's nice that they could find a marriage between the both and make it so that we can be residents, have a nice facility that also helps retain water in the event that it floods so quickly as it does here, so it's nice. We have so many other uses for this whole park, between the soccer, the concerts, the parks, the dog park, everything. I think that it's a great, great facility.
I saw, I don't know what year it was, I believe back in the 70s, I saw one of the most vicious floods in Las Vegas. And maybe there were 200,000 people living here then, but the town was packed, the strip was packed, the flood hit out of nowhere. I remember looking out, and on the strip, you saw the waters roaring down the strip with cars that were upside down, tumbling the cars. It's vicious here. It really is a serious threat to this area.
This facility and many others just like it throughout the valley are great examples of how flooding issues are being addressed while providing a recreational facility for you and your family. These improvements have also helped to reduce flooding hotspots, which historically have cost millions of dollars in flooding damage. Through careful planning, design, and construction, the district has taken a proactive approach to reduce flooding. Earlier, I visited some of these former hotspots and talked to the residents about their experiences.
Well, it's very frustrating because each time it rained, you had to stop what you were doing and run to the store, and then of course customers, when they hear it was going to rain, they wouldn't even come down here. Oh, it totally has stopped. The street here, it drains into storm drainage channels. It's just dry as a bone. I think it's one of the biggest bargains we've had. It's something tangible I can see from those tax dollars. And from what I've seen, that's one of the best spent tax dollars we've had. I see something coming from it, and I see continued progress in that.
Well, the day we came into work, it wasn't raining that bad. It just particularly got worse. But when we seen the water coming down the street, we started to sandbag because we knew we were in a flood zone and we knew we've had problems before. So we started to sandbag, pick up all our fabrics off the floor, but it came down so swift by that mid-morning that it was just, we were racing against time to get everything up. It was devastating to us because we had a couple of jobs in here at the time. We were a booth manufacturer and furniture manufacturer. We lost about $250,000 to $300,000 in materials and fabrics at that time, and like I say, it was tough to overcome. Yeah, now when we see rain, we hear the forecast, and don't even worry about it. We've had a couple good hard rains, and it doesn't even puddle up out there. We have no problems whatsoever. When it did rain, we were concerned. We ran, we picked things up, we started to sandbag, and we had all our neighbors who've been flooded out too. It was no problem. It didn't even come up over the curb.
I think flooding's a problem here because people don't expect it to happen. They think they're moving to the desert and that there's no flooding and no rain. But the rains can come quickly and the floods happen in a hurry, and people don't always have a chance to react properly to it. So we lose people who get caught in washes and who try to drive through flooded streets. And it's really important to try to prevent the flooding from happening. This area was very flood prone at one time. We had two channels that came together here, the Duck Creek Channel and the Pittman Wash Channel. When they came together, this whole area would get flooded out here. The Boulder Highway would be overtopped. The RV park over there would get flooded. The one area of particular concern was the Central Christian Church because they had only one access across the channel, and that access would be flooded, and if a flood occurred while people were in the church, they could be trapped in there for some time. So that was a major problem before we built these channels. These are part of the Regional Flood Control District Master Plan that is designed to eventually protect the whole valley from flooding. This particular channel, or these two particular channels, were a joint effort between Clark County and the City of Henderson because the Duck Creek Channel is handled by Clark County and the Pittman Channel is handled by the City of Henderson. So what we had to do was coordinate our 10-year programs for construction so that the two projects would match up.
Being originally from Boston, Las Vegas City Councilman Larry Brown, the district's board chairman, knows a thing or two about harsh winters and severe weather. And how about the many new residents to the valley? Are they aware of just how potentially dangerous and severe flooding can be in the desert?
Mother Nature has a way about her where she doesn't drop these storms and create the flash flooding where our system's already been built. She picks and chooses as she wants, and that's why there's no consistency on where the storms hit. And that obviously is a direct impact on our system. Our system is built on the process of moving water from the western part of the valley easterly in a safe manner to Lake Mead ultimately with all our detention basins and flood channels. And the issue comes down to truly connectivity. We build our detention basins and our flood channels, but there are certain spots that our system literally hasn't reached yet. And that's why people see that there's still flash flooding, there are still problems in the valley. The history of the flood control district is important to understand because in the early 80s when we had some devastating floods and caused tremendous property damage along the Las Vegas Strip and cost some lives, it was actually created in the mid-80s, and at that time there were truly hot spots in the valley. and people that have been around for 30 years know them by their names, the Flamingo Wash and Duck Creek and the Charleston Underpass. But as we talked about earlier, it's important to understand that we can't just go out and build a system throughout the entire valley. It has to be where the connectivity and the channels and the safety, the measures are in place. But now we look, in 2002, we invested close to $40 million down around the Charleston Underpass, which at one time was considered the poster child of flash flooding and damage and property. Every time it rained, and not the big storms, just nuisance water, that Charleston Underpass would flood and it would close down. We invested close to $40 million, and since 2002, with even some major events, it has been dry as a bone, and not just the underpass, but all the business community within probably a half-mile radius. But we couldn't just go in and fix that. It was part of downstream and upstream improvements that had to be in place before the success of that project was obviously seen by the community. And those hot spots have diminished dramatically since the creation of the district, and we are truly on our way to eliminate some of the highest profile areas, but still acknowledging that we have many, many years to go with much more detention basins and channels and just system-wide. So it's a great point to just constantly remind our citizens, and especially the new people that come to town, that you have to be aware of flash flooding. We don't know what part of town you're going to live in, and we certainly don't know what part of town the storms are going to hit. So it's great to get that message out, and safety is always the priority.
Well, we've talked with residents about multi-use facilities, helping to prevent severe flooding while acting as a recreational area for you and your family. We've also talked with residents about flooding hotspots. Addressing these issues now and in the future is another promise the Regional Flood Control District has made to taxpayers, and the main reason why the Regional Flood Control District was created: to help protect people, homes, families, and businesses from the dangers of floodwaters. For the Flood Channel, I'm Eric Harrington. Back to you, Betty. Oh, by the way, I just completed another piece of the puzzle for you.
Yes, you have, Eric, and we'll be back with more on the Flood Channel after this.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Hi, I'm Hunter. Hi, Uncle.
And you're watching the Flood Channel.
Our puzzle's beginning to reveal a much clearer picture. Let's move on to some projects that have helped improve drainage in southern Nevada.
On September 2nd, 1986, by an overwhelming 2-to-1 margin, Clark County voters agreed to a 0.25% sales tax increase to fund the Regional Flood Control District. The residents chose to tax themselves to protect their homes, families, visitors, and businesses from the devastation of floodwaters for current and future generations. Currently, there are 73 detention basins capable of handling trillions of gallons of water. The district has also completed more than 450 miles of flood channels and underground storm drains to move dangerous floodwaters through neighborhoods safely, away from your homes and your family. The cost for these flood control facilities is well over $1 billion. While much of this work has already been accomplished, there's still a long way to go. The Regional Flood Control District has a master plan with many more projects planned. The bottom line is that the Regional Flood Control District will continue the job that the taxpayers have entrusted to us, and that's to protect you and your family today and tomorrow from the devastation of flooding. And that is another piece of the Regional Flood Control District puzzle.
At a time when Southern Nevada needs to be water smart, did you know taking your car to a car wash saves not only gallons of water, but also traps all that dirt and other nasty pollutants? Washing your car in the driveway allows grease, soap, and oil to flow down the street into storm drains and onto Lake Mead, our primary source for drinking water. Do your part. Wash smart. A clean car and a cleaner environment. This message brought to you by the Stormwater Quality Management Committee, a program of the Regional Flood Control District.
Hi, I'm David Brenner, and you're watching the Flood Channel. Is that rain?
What is the environmental issues that the Regional Flood Control District has addressed?
There are a lot of steps that we have to take before we can even build a project to protect the environment. Because a lot of our projects are located on Bureau of Land Management property, federal property, we have to comply with a whole list of federal regulations that protect the environment. We have to look at protecting endangered species like birds and mammals, and we have to look at protecting endangered fish and endangered plants. So we have prepared an environmental impact statement for our entire master plan, and it looks at these impacts to the environment on a programmatic basis, on a whole system-wide basis. And as our projects come forward, then we look at the specifics of those projects and we develop methods and measures to mitigate our impacts to the environment. All these things are required by federal regulation. We have to do them, and they're a good idea.
We won't have to travel far to reveal the next piece of our district's puzzle here at Lincoln Edison Elementary School, where Carrie Ann is going to talk to us about our student outreach program that teaches children about flood safety.
One important piece of Betty's puzzle is our student outreach program, which educates young students like these at Lincoln Edison Elementary School about not playing in floodwater. Now, in schools last year, we spoke personally with more than 7,000 students about the dangers of flooding. We encouraged those students to talk to their families about what they learned. Las Vegas is like a bowl tipped on its side. So my job at the Flood Control District is to make sure all that water gets through the bowl safely so that we don't have to deal with it when it rains a lot, because that can be really dangerous, right?
My students are most looking forward to getting some more information about floods, what they are, some of the dangers of flooding. They don't know a whole lot about flooding. It typically doesn't flood a lot here in Las Vegas, so we're excited about learning more about flooding.
What I need you to do is I need you to go home and tell your mom and dad not to drive in flood water. That's the third D, don't drive, because it's so dangerous. Even your car is not a safe place to be.
Teachers' main goal is to make children's lives better. So if you can keep them safe, by presenting something or facilitating the presentation of something that can help keep them safe, then yeah, it makes me feel empowered as a teacher. It makes me feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Floodwater is very dirty. Good job. Just like the student outreach program, the district also speaks to adults through creative campaigns about the dangers of flash flooding. We use a lot of ways to get that message out, including the show you're watching right now. We also use catchy billboards, print ads, radio, and TV as some other ways to get out that message of flood safety, because water quality, environmental issues, construction progress, driving tips, and flood insurance are all topics we want you to know about. Well, Betty, another piece of the puzzle is complete.
Thank you, Carrie Ann, for your hard work teaching students about flood safety. It's a really important part of the district's overall community outreach program. We'll be back with more on the Flood Channel after this.
Hi, I'm Jenna, and this is Sophie. I'm Christy, and this is Henry, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
I want to show you some pictures your parents probably wouldn't want you to see. Pictures of parents making big mistakes. Here's someone's dad doing something foolish. He's actually trying to drive through a flooded street. Here's another. And another. Every summer we get flash floods, and every summer the same thing happens. And hey, if all this water can do this to a car, imagine what it'd do to a kid. Look, don't be foolish. Flash floods kill. Tell your parents.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District.
So far, we've covered a lot of ground about the district. Now it's time to look ahead and see what the future holds.
The improvements made by the district have been vast, first off, but to concentrate on a few spots. The Charleston Underpass, Western and Wall, that area used to flood repetitively. Now we've greatly reduced that flooding risk with the infrastructure that's in the ground out there now. Charleston is now open during major flood events, and that's the major east-west traffic to get to UMC and the hospitals and the ambulance companies right there. So that's one. The other investment to the community is the multi-use. Soccer fields, baseball fields, trails alongside the channels. Because it doesn't rain that much in the desert, that these areas can be used for these other purposes, and why not make that investment to the community so that these areas don't sit unused for the majority of the year. The master plan is a living document. We update that as a minimum every 5 years. So as far as our last master plan and where we're at, we're about halfway there completing the plan. We've invested about $1 billion worth of improvements to this community and to Clark County as a whole. So I've been with the district for 18 years. I've seen from no projects being built to over $1 billion investment in this community. I've seen the benefits of those projects where areas used to flood don't flood anymore. Every dollar we spend, it's worth $2 worth of benefits to this community because of the investment we're making and will continue to make into the future. I am very proud. My staff is a small staff. They all work together to provide flood protection to this community. And the knowledge they bring, the common denominator to all these projects, be it the environmental issues, the engineering issues, the construction issues that go on, that go into this complicated plan that we're building. I can't say enough about my staff. And finally, our board of directors, the elected people that make our 8-member board that represent all the entities within Clark County, have always had a regional perspective. And without that regional perspective, we would not be able to do the accomplishments that we have done throughout the entire Clark County area. Prior to taking a regional perspective to addressing the flooding concerns, it was a piecemeal basis. It was each entity doing their own thing within their own corporate boundaries. Floodwaters do not recognize corporate boundaries. They're going to take the path of least resistance. The floods can start in Clark County, run through North Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas, and Henderson. That's why a regional approach was needed to address this problem, which happens regionally. Our flood control facilities are built for a 100-year flood or a 1% chance of being equaled or exceeded in any given year. That's the technical term. But they are there to handle floods up to and including the 100-year flood. They are here for generations to come because we have a maintenance program that we fund the maintenance of these flood control facilities. So the investment that we're making to the community is here for many, many generations to come.
When I look to the future, I see our agency just staying the course, never losing sight of our mission, and it's a basic mission. It's to protect people and it's to protect property. We are one of the most efficient public agencies in the entire state. Over 90% of our revenue that comes from the tax dollars goes directly to the construction of the system and the maintenance of the system. The best thing for us to do, looking down the road, with at least 25 to 30 more years of build-out, is never lose sight of that basic mission. Stay on course, remain efficient, and educate our public on how effective we have been over the last 20 years and how committed we are as a public agency for the next 30.
Well, we're almost finished with this puzzle, but there's one last piece, and that's you. We want to hear from you with your comments or questions about what the district has accomplished and what we still have left to do. Give us a call or email us at regionalflood.org. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Flood Channel. I'm Betty Hollister, and remember to always be flood safe. Oh, what about that puzzle? Take a look.